So I got rid of my Camlink webcam. The on eBay, they're going for double what they're because no one has a webcam.
No, that's not part of the package anymore.
Yeah, so I bought it for like 99 or $100 and sold it for $210.
Wow.
Yeah,
Look
and
at you, George Steinbrennering.
oh, totally double my money. And the only reason I did it is because Canon came out with a EOS utility. You can use your 5D Mark IV or some other cameras as a webcam.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah, same thing for Sony, but or Fuji. Who was it that just came out? Fuji also came out one.
Yeah, Fuji did come out with one. Yeah.
Our fans keep me in the know.
Yeah, you came out with 2 videos in a row about cameras. What's up with that?
Oh man, first of all, boredom, and then drinking too much. But what happened was, I was sitting there like, man, I missed the JPEGs from my XT2.
I don't know why you sold that camera, bro.
Because one, who can't use extra money, right?
Yeah.
And I figured one, I'm not gonna at the time. Remember, we were supposed to be in lockdown till September, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, so if I don't sell it now before the XT4 drops, once the XT4 drops, the price will drop even more. So I mean, I got like almost $1,600 for that whole kit, so I wasn't upset about it,
Yeah, it's still a desirable camera. I've looked at the XT3, which is super nice, and now the XT4, which is super nice, but the XT2 is just good, so it does everything I need. It takes great JPEGs, like you said.
And that was the whole video. The whole video was like, the first video was like first person overreacting. It was like, and this is actually how I felt at the time. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of Sony and not being able just to post my JPEGs because I have to always go in there and tweak them and tweak them and tweak them. I'm just going to get rid of the whole system and jump back on Fuji full time.
Yeah, but listen, even if you changed your mind or had that thought, it was good to get it out there because I get that question all the time. Like, hey, I have Sony gear and I'm thinking of switching, or the other way around. Hey, I have a lot of Fuji gear, which I love, but they want to know what's on the other side. So maybe in this podcast, we can kind of give you a picture of what you're missing out on if you are on one side of the fence. And, this may fall under the category of the grass is always greener on the other side.
It really is. It truly, really is. Like you don't realize what you have until you jump that ship. And then you're like, oh, but I'm not having this now and I don't have that now. So, so that was the first video, my jumping ship from Sony completely because I need to get back into Fuji's colors world, right?
Yeah.
But then I realized, on the second video, I said, I'm going to give Sony obviously more chances because I have a whole system, and over some JPEGs, do I really want to go through the trouble of switching my full-time camera system?
Yeah.
Because people don't understand. There's a lot. If you've never switched systems,
Yeah.
you don't realize. I switched systems once already. Twice. I went from Canon 1,000 years ago to Nikon, and then recently from Nikon to Sony. And you got to get new lenses. You got to get new batteries. You got to get if it's a specific Nikon, you got to get that really expensive XQD card. I mean, there's so much more than just I'm gonna go pick up a new system. It's an investment of time and energy. And I'm like, you know what? I don't really feel like doing that over some JPEGs because I still edit my Sony RAWs and I still love those and they come out amazing, and the high dynamic range that it provides me, I'll be giving all that up for JPEGs. So I'm like, let me just get a lens for the Sony, get a whole, born again feeling with it. And then if it works out, I'm just going to, stick with that. And you know what I actually might do? I might just pick up a smaller Fuji and just, have it in my pocket for when I go on the streets, because that's when I loved it. When I used to go out on the street with the XT2 and I used to post almost everything directly from the camera. I didn't edit any of that.
Yeah. I think people that are switching or thinking of switching need to figure out what their needs are. So one of the main reasons to get into Fujifilm, yes, great JPEGs, yes, fun to shoot with, but really the size can't be beat. If you're, an outdoor photographer and you're hiking a lot, or if you're going to be on the streets all day, having a smaller camera is liberating. And so you have to know why you're switching. Now, look at me, I'm guilty of having 3 camera systems. And number one, I have the 5D Mark IV because I love Canon. That's what I came from, and I wasn't going to sell that camera. Its value dropped so much that right now they're selling it new for about 2,000, almost like what an EOS R is. And the sensor on that camera, the 5D Mark IV is an amazing camera. The thing it doesn't have going for it is it's not a DSLR. Sorry, it's not a mirrorless camera.
Right. The weight of that's its biggest disadvantage.
Yeah, it's big, it's bulky. But you know what? I've dropped it a couple of times and nothing happens to it. So there is a benefit if you are looking for a rugged camera. You know, these DSLRs are, titanium, adamantium,
Shtick. Yeah.
Exactly. So I kept the Canon for having a Canon. And then the Sony, I think if someone's coming from Canon and they're trying to switch to Sony, just because of the adapters that are available, that's an easy switch. We've said this before, but if you're coming from Nikon or another system, it's a lot harder to buy a lot of stuff.
And Nikon's picked up on that because they've actually given out more information so that people from Sony can actually adapt their lenses now to their new mirrorless system as well.
Cool.
So, I mean, because when I first was leaving Nikon and jumping on the Sony, I had, to me, I had the two most important lenses in our business. So I had the 7200 f2 and I had the 7200 and then the 24-70. And those are the best lenses to have if you're in our business. If you have those two lenses, you can get away with almost anything. And I had to start all over. I still don't have those lenses replaced. The closest thing I have is the Tamron 28-75. And actually, I'm glad I didn't get the G Master because I'm very happy with the Tamron 28-75. Yeah. But that's the thing, I don't
think you're ever happy though. You're not happy. That's the problem.
I'm a happy person. I'm just not technically happy with technical stuff. So I'm the most happiest person but when it comes to technology, I need to have everything. I know.
I was about to mention that your desire to have the new, that sometimes does motivate some people. Like when you have a new lens or you have a new camera, it does create excitement. So for those of you that are switching because you're kind of in a lull or bored, you got to think about that too. You shouldn't be spending $3,000 because it's going to light a fire under your butt. So maybe it's take on a project or think of, getting out there and shooting with what you have. Like you mentioned, that Tamron 28-75, you could just rock that out and try to make photographs with that. It's just not as fun. I understand. It's not as fun as having, something new or something that you're excited about that makes great JPEGs like the Fujifilm. Fujifilm flat out has great colors out of camera, and the sharpness that the camera applies to the JPEGs is just fantastic, especially if you use Lightroom. I would recommend, that's the other thing, if you're getting into Fujifilm and you're using Lightroom, it's kind of meh. It really is a lot of the raw files, and you're processing, working with Fuji RAWs is kind of disappointing. But when you bring them into Capture One, man, in Capture One, they're so crisp and so sharp and so ready to go. They're like JPEGs, the raw files.
Is that a free software, or is that also something you have to pay for?
You can get the free. They provide a free Fujifilm. It's called Fujifilm Express. And if someone's just getting into Fujifilm, I recommend either getting the Capture One Express or Luminar, which is a super cheap $50, $60 software for reading RAWs. But now you're talking about if you have a Lightroom workflow, not only are you buying lenses like crazy, you're like, man, I got to switch programs now.
Yeah, that's a pain in the tuchus.
Especially
if it's your professional thing. Yeah, because if it's just for fun, whatever, make it work. But if you're professional and as a professional, what is the most important value of your life? Is the time. Yeah. So if you're now jumping ship because of the JPEGs, but now you have to start using a different program for your RAWs, you've just added time to your process, which now, if you think like a professional, you're now charging less to do more.
Yeah,
because now you're doing more work, so now your income per hour has gone down, or something to think about.
Yeah. And I think one thing about that is how much post-processing do you want to do? If you're really tired of post-processing, then maybe get a camera where the JPEGs are great. And Sony's JPEGs, they're okay if you start tweaking and finding they have the problem with Sony is they have too many looks. If you go through their creative style, it's very confusing. They have something called picture profiles. Picture profiles are usually used in video, so you can kind of tweak what the camera is doing. That's called a picture profile. But then they also have their film simulations, and they're also called creative JPEGs or creative.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that gives you your black and white. That gives you your vivid and your vibrant. That's for photographs. The problem is those are so. You have to really like them. They're not really tweakable. They're not like Fujifilm's film simulations because those are based on real films that Fuji made.
Right.
So you kind of have a little bit of a nostalgic, or the colors are like, damn, this is all based on years of those film developers coming up with these great colors. That's why they look so good.
Yep, and that's what I was saying about the video I put out. The first one was it's not that Sony's JPEGs are bad. It's just that they've never made me say wow.
Yeah.
They're good. You could put them out there. You could, no one's gonna go there and go, that's a crappy ass picture. They're gonna dig it. But to me, I just there it is. It's good enough.
It's good enough. Yeah.
It just doesn't have wow.
Again, if you don't, you're right. If you don't want to sit and edit RAWs, it's nice when the JPEGs are shareable right away.
Exactly. Like if you go out to a family parade, right, and you want to go and upload everything that you just took because your son or daughter was in it or whatever, you could just boom upload it and you're done because you're happy with that.
Yeah, I'll give you an example right now. So did you see the Black Lives Matter? You liked it, so you saw it.
I loved it.
So I talked about this in one video. I have a grab bag, which is my my think tank retrospective bag, and it always has my 56 millimeter 1.2. That is like the best Fujifilm lens, and the 18 to 55. Oh, nice. You have the bigger one.
Yes,
that's cool.
All that noise.
So I went out to the Black Lives Matter, protest that we had here in our town of Nutley, and all I had were those two lenses, the 18 to 55 and the 56 millimeter 1.2, which I ended up using more, the 56. But all those images that you saw were grabbing the JPEGs just right out of the camera using Provia film simulation. And I'll share some of those here as we talk, but you can tweak the Fujifilm JPEGs to have the right amount of contrast you like, the right amount of colors. So what's cool is exactly. So you can take one of the JPEGs that, film simulations that you like and even tweak it to your liking. I feel like with Sony's creative styles, you're kind of messing with contrast and it just doesn't work the same way. It's not easy. It's not user friendly.
That's what it is, because I found when I did try tweaking stuff in the Sony world, it's become like a Frankenstein. It's not
skin is weird. Skin is weird. Reds are weird.
It's not anything right. It's not anything that I was looking for. So I kind of just reset it and start over. Where back in the XT2 days, I had what I considered acros Moe. Right, so the shadows were up at a certain point, the sharpness was at a certain point, and that's just, again, bottom line is, if you're thinking about jumping ship, you really have to start, and you have to really stop and think. Like it's not. I think valid reasons to jump ship. Your camera broke and you need a new camera. And you got to start over, unless you have a lot of lenses. But it's still a good time to try to think about it.
Yeah, but lenses hold their value. I mean, lenses hold their value, I think, more than cameras do. So
for sure. I mean, if your lens is in good condition, 95% of the time you're going to sell it for more than about 50% of what you got, if not more. So totally. A camera, you're probably, if you sell it for 10 to 15 to 20% at the end of its life cycle, you've done good. What else? If you've gotten to the point where you bought yourself an entry-level system and you've gotten to the point where you've overmastered it and now it's boring you, that's a time where you need to...
Good point. That was me with the Rebel, the first Canon I had, the Rebel XS. I'm like, this ain't happening. And I wanted to go full frame then.
The Nikon D5000 I had, and it was... I thought it was an intermediate. It was a medium level. So I have the 3000, the 5000, and the 7000 in the APS world, but APC world. Sorry. And what ended up happening was, I outgrew it. So I jumped onto the D7000 and I loved that camera for a while. But then full frame was something I needed. So then I jumped to the Nikon D600, which, if you remember, had that really horrible shutter problem where it was actually leaking.
Oh yeah.
oil somewhere and
Yeah,
and,
that's
and,
weird.
and damaging the sensor and stuff like that, which they replaced for me free, no problem. And then I didn't have the problem anymore. And then I jumped to the 800 and then the 850, and I was so happy. And then I jumped into mirrorless. So my moves have been progressive for my talent as well as for my better well-being. I think everyone knows that carrying an 8-pound camera system for me was getting tougher. So jumping to the Sony was so much easier because it was such a lightweight kit.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna say that I definitely, people always asking me why I don't use the Fujifilm for Pro, and I've addressed it before, but I definitely love the cameras for being fun, shooting JPEG, sharing, doing photography for me. I have tried bringing them to events. They don't, even the XT3 when it came out, they don't focus as fast as the Sony. They can't even hold a candle to Sony's autofocus. And anyone who says otherwise is just convincing themselves. They're being completely tribalist and saying, yes, you can do pro work with the Fujifilm stuff, but unless you use Sony's grab onto everything and stay grabbed on, you can't really say much. But so I want the tool that can do the best job. And Sony's sensor is unbelievable. The colors are blech. But I've learned how to make picture profiles using the color checker passport. Mm-hmm. This guy right here. Those of you listening, sorry, I'm holding up the color checker passport. I take a picture of this at temples, at ceremonies, at churches, and then I run this color software through my computer, and there are no Sony colors. They're
Right.
Omar colors.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, and then I have a baseline, and they almost look like Pro via Fuji. When you use one of those color checker passports, it comes in with normal grass color, normal skin color. And if you're coming from Canon, it's going to look weird to you because Canon skin colors are more orange and more on the yellow side. So when you actually see real skin on your screen, you're like, what the hell is that?
And that's the weird thing, because remember, at one point, nothing was better than Canon colors, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize they're good, but they also could be tweaked.
It's funny you say that. I was going back to some of my old photographs, and I'm like, what's wrong with these? There was nothing wrong with them. They were just on the oranger side after, having calibrated my brain to starting from normal skin color.
Another thing to back up your point about why you can't use Fuji for professional work is your events involve kids or people who are going to be moving at a high rate of speed 9 or 10 times. You're not doing slow-paced weddings. You're not doing,
Yeah,
you
that's
do portrait
true.
work.
You're totally
and
right.
You do portrait work, which you could probably get away with no problem. But when it comes to those events, it's night. You have super low light. You have kids moving at the speed of light. You need to lock that focus instantly. You can't wait for it.
Yeah, and the one limiting thing too, besides AF, is even if I get a great shot, one of the things you can do with the Canon 5D Mark IV and the Sony is their resolution and their sharpness is so much more. So a lot of times there's moments that happen a little further away than you'd like them to. And if I turn around and snap grandpa hugging his, grandson's head, he's tiny in the frame. And I've tried to crop in Fujifilm files to 1:1 or even 2:1. You cannot crop a 2:1 on a Fujifilm. The resolution just goes out the window. If you have a Fujifilm file that's full frame, it's gorgeous. It's good enough to print. But as a pixel peeper and someone who crops in, there isn't enough resolution on the Fujifilm cameras to do that. But with the Canon and the Sony, I've cropped in and made new photographs, making horizontals, verticals. I've zoomed in on moments and made those photographs. So there's a lot of leeway there,
And that's what you need as a professional. You need to have room, one way or another, in case if something goes wrong or in case you find a little diamond in the background.
An event photography. And listen, if I was a landscape photographer, let's just play fantasy now. Let's go through the genres of photography. So if I was doing landscape photography, I would be a medium format photographer. I would shoot either Fujifilm 100XS or the 100 megapixel camera they have, or any kind of media, just to get beautiful large prints on a wall.
And that makes perfect sense. And I love their, what is it, GX system that they have? The
GFX. GFX, yeah.
I got to hold that and use it at the last photo show they had down here.
Huge.
Huge, heavy, huge. Looking at, they had like a what, like a 20 by 30 monitor on the wall,
It's
and you
so
could see
yeah.
everything so sharp and
Yeah, I know.
clear.
Landscape, I want to see each leaf. I want to see each hair on the wildlife, shooting wildlife. So I would definitely do larger format. Now, if I wasn't going GFX, the Sony, uh, the R series, the higher resolution cameras,
Hmm.
those seem to be great, to get large megapixels. So the A7R4 or A7R3.
Yeah, you start at about what, 38 on a 3, you started with about 38,
40,
37,
42 megapixels.
42,
Yeah,
42
and the new
megapixels.
one's a little too much. But
Yeah,
again, if I
60
was
something. Yeah,
yeah,
oof.
60, it's a lot.
Forget about it. One file, my memory is full. One
Yeah.
picture.
All right, give me
So,
another genre, and then you tell me what you would get.
portrait.
Okay.
Portrait work.
What's your perfect portrait combo?
Obviously, a full frame. It'd have to be 85.
Why full frame? Why full frame? APS is better.
It could be. Not for me, right? You're asking what I think.
No, I know. I was just playing devil's
I know
advocate.
you did, and you scared me. No, you know what? Because my experience when I had the Nikon D7000 and I was doing portrait work with it, I was very happy with it. Right? I was, wow, this is awesome. Then I started doing it with full frame,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
No, they say gear doesn't matter, but once you get that full frame, man.
I thought I was awesome shooting my Nikon D7000. It was like a 24 megapixels. It was banging. Everything was great. I took those same lenses because I bought full frame lenses back in the day because I knew eventually I get full frame body. So when I started using my 24 to 70 f2 on my Nikon D600, which was entry level, I was
Yeah.
still like, wow, this is amazing. You could all take picture with your Barbie Go camera that your daughter has, right?
Ooh,
But if I give you the, a Hasselblad, whatever, your pictures are now going to be automatically better just because they're coming out of that thing.
totally. What I'm gonna say for portraits, I would still say, this Canon coming out, this Canon R5, Canon. At first, I was ready to give up on Canon with the Sony A7 III, but then when I tried the Canon R, I did that whole Vogue shoot with it. Just the sharpness to bokeh to color, like all the little graphs that it fills in together. That Canon EOS R's files were just gorgeous coming out of there.
You adopted your lenses to it, right?
I did, but the Canon lenses, yeah, the Canon lenses.
They,
Have you?
so, but you need an adapter. That's what I'm just making sure.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I didn't
Okay.
have it. I did have one RF lens. It was the 51.2 that they make. Damn, that was
That
just.
thing was huge.
It's huge and it's beautiful and it's
Yeah.
expensive, but I think a little unnecessary. I'm okay with 1.4. I really need a 1.4 because I back away from my subjects and I still want that separation. Anyone doing headshots at 1.4 is it's like too much, too much bokeh. Did you see?
Yeah.
Did you see?
It's Tony.
Tony.
Too much Tony.
Yeah, those of you that know that don't know what we're talking about is Camera Conspiracies just came out with a video on Tony making fun of Tony Northrup.
He made the video because he's been saying it for like weeks now, and then he finally just said,
Oh, yeah?
what is
Tony.
Tony?
Oh, yeah,
Because he's been talking about cameras. He goes, but what do you know? This is a 1.8 Tony, and I'm like, what? Then I realized, did you see the video he did of?
Yeah, I saw Tony Northrup's video where he was on a lake and he was using the
Yeah.
50 millimeter 1.2, and his like eyelashes were sharp and his ears were like super blurry.
Yeah, like you couldn't see anything behind him. It was like, it was awesome, but
yeah.
scary. It was.
He was Camera Conspiracies Casey was so offended by that. He was like, you can't even
Come
see
on.
anything.
Come on, Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. So let me ask you a question. So I went ahead and I've ordered a lens, like I said, to compensate for to help me through this.
Compensate for your need of something new.
To get me through the I'm
I'm bored with life.
bored with my Sony. And I got the 20 millimeter f 1.8. I know you've used that one, right?
Yep, I just sent it back. I had it for a couple weeks for review. The review hasn't come out. Hasn't come out yet.
Without spoiling your upcoming review, was it a good call on my part, or was it an okay call on my part?
I think my experience with it. See, I used it a lot on the crop. I was having so much fun on the 6400 with that lens because it made it a 30-ish millimeter lens. So I had kind of like a 30 millimeter point two f2. Point two. That'd be awesome, bokeh. That'd be awesome.
Not.
Tone.
Tony, not.
Knocked. No, on the crop, man. I was walking around with that. I was actually using my 6400 for photography, and
Wow.
some of my videos that you see recently, like the one I did on the Black Lives Matter, that was recorded on a 20 millimeter, and it gives you a nice little 30 millimeter f2 look. So you have really good bokeh. As far as on the full frame goes, I'm not really into shooting prime wide.
Ultra-wide?
Like walking out the door with that, like with a 20 millimeter, that's kind of crazy. That's like walking out the door with the other end. Like if you had a 135 only, you really are now
Putting yourself, this is a box.
and
that's
box,
the box.
as opposed to a
that-
general purpose prime,
Yeah.
which is a nice 35 millimeter. You're just doing photography. You're looking for compositions. So I found it great, really great. So you might enjoy it, but I think it's gonna get old fast. It may get old unless you're using it on a crop.
Well, I think I might use it on a crop because of the videos I've been doing. I've been using the baddest. It's a 25 millimeter, and it crops in when you go 4K, right? Which is what I've been recording, so I can either downsize it to 1080. And it's such a crop, and I have such a small office here that I want to create the illusion of a bigger office. So if I go with the 4K and the crop, it's still going to look like a 24 as opposed to a 28 or 32.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the reason I got it, mostly because of that, and because I do want to go and do some 20 millimeter, 85 millimeter street shooting.
Are you gonna get rid of the baddest?
Yeah, I've actually already put it on eBay. It's already on out there for departure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you're going to have the same. I think you're going to have the same problem down the road. I find that primes are great if they're general purpose primes. I've given up on a lot of my specialty primes. There was a while there where I had I think an 18 full frame. It was like an 18 millimeter super crazy macro lens, which took some weird pictures, but I just never used it. I never wanted to go out the door with it. I didn't even want to bring it to jobs because there's something extra to carry. And so now the point I'm at is really nothing is on my radar to buy. Like I'm really trying to work with what I have. For the social distancing portraits I'm doing now, I'm kind of just focusing on 85 millimeter for everything. I really think I'm just going to rock that one lens out because it's good for full body. I'm far enough. And for 3/4, I'm still far enough. I'm beyond 6 feet for 3/4.
That's the next video I'm actually going to do. Actually, that's going to be the first lens video I do. I've already started laying it out. Is my journey with an 85 from the D5000 to now. Why it's such an important lens in any photographer's kit.
That's the title. Everyone should have an 85.
That's everyone's, isn't that everyone's title?
Yeah, that's true.
Why everyone should have an 85?
Listen, every Fujifilm user should have the 56 millimeter 1.2, man.
That's so beautiful.
That one is just so nice. And that's one of the other reasons I don't shoot Fujifilm Pro is I would like the lenses to be 1.1s, 1.0s. Because if you're further back, you don't get that cool filmic bokeh look. The background is blurry, but it's not tony.
So get up in the face then, man. Just shove the camera in the face and bokeh them to death.
Yeah, I don't know. Those days are over. Now we got to be so far back.
That's so true. That's so true.
I shot a mitzvah from about 10 feet from behind the last row. It was a backyard mitzvah.
I saw that.
Yeah, I had the 70 to 200. 70 to 200, and then had my mask on. It was super wonderful. Like the mitzvah was intimate and beautiful, but it was weird to be conscious of other people, being close to the videographer. I was like, it was a little claustrophobic.
Oh man, I said, for a while nothing will be the same. I mean, Do you think we'll get to a point where we'll just be normal and forget everything? Because that's what happens with nature, with human nature, right? Like when you just come out of the beach and you swore you just almost drowned, you're very careful with how you go into the water. And
Yeah.
then like 2 years later, you're swimming
I'm
into the deep water
You're right.
again.
I'm already seeing it. I mean, we had a family party in the backyard. People are not nervous anymore with like within family. And yesterday we were in Hoboken walking around, and there's just people everywhere, no masks. Where one woman, the sidewalk was like 15 feet, and she jogged right by another woman. You know, like.
Yeah, yeah, no, I see that too, and I don't go anywhere without my mask, and I'm actually like have to remind myself take it off in the car when I'm by myself because
Oh, you're that guy.
I'm so used to just wearing it, you know.
Who's that idiot driving with a mask?
I'm a delicate little flower. I can't
Yeah.
take any chances, you know.
Crazy.
All right, so what else you got? Anything
No,
else
no,
exciting?
I think we're good. I mean, we should just have a Moe and O photo show BLM message hashtag Black Lives Matter. I saw you marched like we did.
Yeah. So here's the funny story behind that march, right? I was sitting, that was the day after the Sony I'm leaving thing. I was just in a really bad place for like a couple days. And that was all because of everything going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I got to do something. I can't just, a video is cool, but I got to do more. And by the way, the first video with the signs and stuff, that was one thing. But then the second video, I posted that shot completely on the Samsung S20. Everything, all the footage off that is off a phone. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Cool.
And so I sold the phone. I was on my way to UPS in Teaneck to drop off the phone so it could be shipped. And I walked into that.
Oh, okay.
And I said, you know what? This lens can wait. I went and put it back in the car. And then I just started marching. I just started walking. And I was like, I just got wrapped up into it. It was like so beautiful. Like I said, Teaneck is predominantly a Jewish community.
Yeah.
In certain spots. And that's what it was like. I was in the section with nothing but Jewish people yelling out Black Lives Matter, and I thought that was so beautiful. I had a rabbi come over to me with his little green. He didn't have latex gloves. He had dishwashing glove hands.
Yeah.
He came over to me and he said, we support you and thank you for coming out here and
Oh, he
supporting
thought
us.
you were
supporting
black.
you.
You're like, I'm
Yeah.
brown, man.
I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm black. I'm Indian. I'm everything I am supposed to be. So I accept
Yeah.
it.
Same here. I've been Pakistani. I've been.
You ever go to 7-Eleven, have them start talking to you in their language, and you're like,
Yeah, in the past when I had hair.
yeah. So I
It
used to
seems
tell
to be
them,
like a hair thing. Yeah.
no, brother, I'm sorry. We could be brothers, but just talk to me so I can understand you. So that was it. I mean, I think we've gotten to the point as a society that I can't believe we have to have these conversations. But at the same time, the conversations have to be had. It's the silence that's been killing us.
Yeah, I think what I'm most amazed about is how there's a lot. Hold on, my camera just died. Oh, all right. Sorry, I changed my picture.
Anyway, so tell me about what happened with what you
No,
did.
with Black Lives Matter, I'm just amazed how many people, maybe I'm not amazed, that are entitled, have privilege, don't see the problem, focus on the wrong things like the rioters,
Right.
and also try to distract you by looking at all the negative.
Yep.
Like, oh, this is all great. There's protesters, but why are you out there with the disease? These are the same people that wanted to be on the beach and get their haircuts. Right. Now all of a sudden It's like, why are you guys all out there? So I'm amazed how popular those viewpoints are. Well, maybe they're not popular. Maybe they're just
being voiced at the right place.
Exactly. So, and I brought this up in a tweet. I said, really, you're not going to change anyone's mind. These people, no matter what, a lot of them have racial undertones. You can tell by their posts, and they're never going to change. Just like I'm never going to change about thinking that Black Lives Matter. You're not going to get me to change that we should have more cops and they could do what they want.
Right? No, that's the whole problem. Like in the video, one of the videos I posted off the phone, the first thing I said was, we know a lot of police officers. We grew up with a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
And I'm never sitting here going to say that every cop is garbage. That's a lie.
Of course.
That's a big fat lie. So many. I've had a state trooper, a white state trooper, pull up to my car when I was having a vertigo attack and I couldn't drive, and he pulled over. He chatted with me, made sure why was I pulled over. I was telling him, hey, I'm having a vertigo attack. It's not something I normally deal with, but this, that, and the other. He took me out of my car, had my car towed to Willowbrook. I drove in his car, and he let me sit in my car in Willowbrook after he had it towed at no one's dime but his, or the city's, or whatever.
Wow,
So
wow.
you don't sit here and have to tell me that there's good cops out there of all
Of
colors.
course. We grew up with a lot of them. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but that's what I don't like when people brush everyone together. All cops are bad. All protesters are looters. That's just ridiculous,
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. Like you said, people skew on both sides, whatever makes sense to be said.
Both sides, of course, both extreme sides. And I think I'm done. And you said that you were having a tough time and everything, and I was too. I didn't want to make any videos. I just have no desire to. And part of it is I spent some of my time talking, like writing back to these people, trying to reason with. And I just realized that, you know what? Strength in numbers, the movement seems to be going in the right direction. There's already talk about reform and things like that. But mentally, I was really hurting myself, like trying to fight the fight.
Yeah. My first post about it, I turned comments off, and I specifically said, this is not a debate. This is my opinion on what I've experienced. And you know what actually bothers me too is people who tell you they've experienced the same thing you have when they really haven't,
Yeah.
I've been at gunpoint in North Carolina because I was the wrong color in the wrong neighborhood. And for you to tell me that you're uncomfortable because you're in a group of black people and you're the only white person, that's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
My cousin who's not my cousin, my wife's cousin, who's Italian, he says he goes into like Patterson, and he says all like the drug dealers and the crazies on the street, they know who he is. And they're like, hey, they because he delivers and stuff in the area for restaurants and things like that, and they know him. And then he drives through that neighborhood, and he gets pulled over by cops because they think he's the drug like lord. He's the white. It's like reverse. He's the white guy in the black neighborhood.
Hey, you don't belong here. What are you doing here, Papa?
Yeah, and then where you're coming from. They want to know where he's coming from, and so he says he's got stopped in black neighborhoods. He's white. He gets pulled over just as much. So it happens
everywhere.
Yeah,
every side. I mean, obviously. Another thing I saw the other day, which was accurate and something I had given no thought to it, was how many have not been recorded.
Oh, please.
We're upset about what we're seeing. How many get done daily with no one seeing them? How many people? We can go into a whole wormhole about this whole thing, but I think honestly, 2020. I said it the other day in that video. We are such an advanced country, yet we're so barbaric when it comes to so many things.
Oh, we have so much poison in our history. Don't even get started on the Native Americans and how we took everything.
We took it all.
That's so sad. Mm-hmm. On that note,
now that we've crushed everybody's feelings and love,
I feel honestly, to be 100%, I am just like been so down this last week. I've been like, I even had a birthday yesterday, and it was kind of like.
Look, I don't blame you. I mean, that's exactly. I think if you're a good human being and you're watching everything going on from every angle, the truth, the lies on the left, the lies on the right, it just has to break you down as a human and make you think like, wow, where are we really going? This is a really sad place that we are in.
Yeah,
because like I said,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say because like I said, because there's the truth in the middle and there's people pushing both agendas on either side, and I think that's the biggest problem we have. I mean, that we need to get things together as a country. I mean, we are supposedly the best country in the world, yet we have all these problems that you don't find anywhere else.
Man, we went down in rankings. It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. But the Sony 20mm f1.8 is not embarrassing.
We'll end on a good note. The coolest thing about that lens is it has a switch to make the aperture ring be clickable or be like smooth.
Be like water, my friend.
That's amazing. All right, then.
All right, get off my phone. Which side are you on? I'm gonna high five you.
Oh, I'm on this side. Nope. No, you do the other side. Yeah, right there. All right. See ya.